Scientism treats the methodology of the laboratory as a totalizing worldview, dismissing any experience that cannot be measured or replicated as mere noise. This rigidity triggers an equal and opposite reaction, a complete retreat into pure intuition. When empirical data fails to capture the weight of a spiritual experience or the visceral impact of art, the tendency is to abandon evidence entirely in favor of how things feel. These two extremes create a false binary between logic and emotion. To see how we actually navigate the world, we have to look past this cultural divide and examine the cognitive architecture that drives every human judgment. Every investigative tool has a specific range of competence. The breakdown happens when we lose the boundary conditions that tell us where a method's reliability ends and its extrapolation begins. The first layer of this architecture is feeling. Far from being an obstacle to thought, emotion acts as a radar system that assigns salience to the environment, flagging specific data as important enough to demand cognitive resources. This salience feeds into intuition. This isn't a mystical sixth sense, but a rapid, non-conscious integration of past memories and current patterns to produce a sudden judgment or a possible solution. But intuition is only as reliable as the environment that shaped it. As psychologist Daniel Kahneman has shown, expertise requires stable regularities and immediate feedback. Without those conditions, a high level of subjective confidence is a poor predictor of actual accuracy. Consider a residential project on a street named for a poet. Two towers rise as drones print panels with algorithmic precision, while human hands step in to adjust the final rhythm. The architecture lives in the balance between the calculation and the intent. Feeling and intuition drive the initial search for patterns, but because they are internal processes, they require an external check to distinguish a breakthrough from a delusion. Scientific inquiry provides that check. It functions as an error-correcting loop, forcing an intuitively generated idea to encounter observable, external constraints that can prove it wrong. This is where the most significant leaps in understanding occur. Albert Einstein used intense visual imagination to conceive of relativity, but he then subjected those internal images to years of rigorous empirical testing. When we lose this anchor, we fall into superstition. Defined mathematically, superstition is a failure of calibration. It occurs when confidence in a belief vastly exceeds the reliability of the process used to reach it, creating an epistemic danger zone. This mechanical failure is identical whether it's scientism overextending a lab result into philosophy, dogmatism claiming private revelation as universal fact, or an ideology built on false premises. A system of thought becomes problematic the moment its conclusions are smuggled across the border into a domain where its evidence no longer applies. Even a perfectly calibrated mind faces a final hurdle, the transfer of that clarity to someone else. Because a receiver reconstructs every incoming message using their own existing concepts and biases, information is never simply downloaded, it is rebuilt. This creates the decontextualization trap. Stripped of the original structure, a technical conclusion loses the assumptions and margins of error, making it accurate initially. When this happens, a qualified probabilistic result is received as absolute certainty, fueling the very misinformation the original research was meant to solve. We see this in a white towel left in an empty classroom to signal love. It is a profound gesture to the one who understands the code, but it is invisible to a mind lacking the vocabulary or framework to interpret it. The response to this knowledge gap is not to withhold information or retreat into elitism. It is to build the explanatory scaffolding, the conceptual bridges, required to restore the context that was lost in transit. Calibration is the final test of an investigative system. It means knowing what each tool contributes, where its validity weakens, and doing the work to share those insights across the gap between one mind and another.